So in that context, I really believe that there is enough domestic demand of products, and Professor Raghavan talked one aspect of it, just in the context of NFN, NOFN, and NK, and you look at medical electronics, you look at automotive, you look at defense, you look at every other element where there's tremendous amount of consumption happening. So if you can take that as a starting point to say that what are the systems needed, what are the chips needed, what are the designs needed, and can I actually start with that? Because if you really see today, and I can say that again with our own personal experience, 12 months to 18 months is all it takes to build a system if you really have good processes. And probably, I'm sure, in the semiconductor industry, the same thing could be said, that you can really come out with a A+ chip in 12 to 18 months max. So if in the next 12 to 18 months we can create all those important drivers of the whole ESDM growth in India, I think that to me is what can be done. And once that is done, the corresponding things in terms of components or in terms of EMS can really come in place. This initiative alone, in my mind, in 18 to 24 months, we can capture 50 or 60% of the value chain that goes into electronic product across, average variety of sectors. So I think that's something which can be done, which I believe is more or less in the hand of entrepreneurs in industry, provided the biggest element, which is, the market or the demand for that is made available. And that's really where, if you actually see, I mapped out all the different 5 or 6 policies of Government of India and how they fit in. So if you really, there are 2 axes, short, in one stuff that is short-term, medium-term, and long-term. What I call is what is low impact or high impact on one side. And from a time and investment perspective, because time is also money, what costs less and what costs a lot more, what can be done quickly and what will take a long time. So if you really see the preferential market access, which is creating the local demand from government procurement or any other forms that government can aggregate, to me is the single largest asset that we have given the country that we are. And why I say this is very important for India, because we talked of the Israel model. Israel doesn't have a domestic market. If you look at from a Vietnam angle, which is another country which is going up very well in terms of the manufacturing, Vietnam doesn't have the R&D capabilities that India has. They don't have the amount of people and the talent that we have. So India really needs to see what is best for India in the context that we live. And I really feel that if we can leverage our domestic demand and the policies which are in place really do provide an opportunity. There is, of course, a need to link and connect the dots, that all of this demand has to be aggregated in a targeted manner. People can work and say that this is what is coming out in the next 12 to 18 months. And by the way, again, we should not rely everything on the government. There's a lot of information available, and between the associations that industry bodies like IESA have established, we have very good transparency and visibility into what all are the opportunities at the end user level that are going to be created in the next 12 to 18 months, for which stuff can start right now. There are certain fiscal incentives which I call as sweeteners. In my mind, a good measure for all the government policies that are coming together, whether it's a central level or state level, is if 1 year from today, if we have a Vision Summit next year, and we ask a lot of people who are sitting in the room, how many of you have actually benefited in your company or in your business from whatever has happened in the country? And if you can have half the people raise their hand saying, yes, I got this incentive, or I got this market, or I was able to get this grant, or I was able to get this thing going, I think to me that's a big success factor. And really, that's something which I think, again, as an industry association, we can absolutely ensure. Medium term, although R&D funding is going to be available from the government, realistically speaking, given the environment that we live today with CVC, CAG, and every other environment, I think there are some structural changes which are needed to fix. I was discussing this with Dr. Ajay yesterday as well, is that so far all the incentives in the Government of India, especially in the software sector, there was a fundamental difference between the software and the ESDM. In software sector, government made basically one fundamental policy, which, by the way, from a dollar investment was much more incentive that they would probably give to the ESDM, which is that after you have made the profits, you're allowed not to pay taxes. And if you actually take cumulatively the amount of tax breaks that the entire software industry got over the last 15, 20 years, it runs probably $50 to $100 billion. Now, from a government perspective, not taking money, after a decision has been made once is a very easy thing, Actually, nobody wants to collect money in general, right? Now, think about the ESDM sector, where you have to give money. You have to give R&D grants, whether it's 1 crore or 10 crore or 100 crore. You have to give a subsidy. You have to give an incentive. You have to distribute money out of government departments. That's not easy in India. And especially, we're not talking of small change here. You're talking of lakhs, crores, or maybe tens of crores. I think we need to really figure out a good implementation mechanism, again, collaborating with government and industry to make that happen. I think so that's one aspect. So my view is that the R&D funding that will come today will not have an impact in the next 18 to 24 months. Probably it will have an impact in the medium term. Similarly, the MSIPS policy, which gives capital subsidies for people to set up manufacturing units. First, the units have to be there, they have to be set up. There's a gestation period for that, there's a gestation period for investment. So it'll be very good, but I don't think it's going to result in any magic in the next 18 to 24 months. Then, of course, you have the long-term thing. If you don't have our own fab, if you cannot produce, all the stuff in the country to the extent that we would choose to or want to, but that's again, if you even take a decision by March, it'll take a few years before the first chip comes out of India. And similarly, the greenfield clusters, I mean, if you got to start with land acquisition, build up the infrastructure, it'll take time. So I think all the three need to be done. The beauty of, I would say, the short-term investment is the preferential market access costs nothing to the government. It's zero cost, but it's a very high impact. The stuff on the right-hand side will probably cost a lot of money. It'll have a lot of impact, but it'll take a lot of time. So I think that's really where the balance has to happen. And in my mind, the unique Indian solution to all this is we have to figure out how to take all these 6 elements, play it together, and make sure that in the environment that we live, in the system that we live, how can we really motivate and make sure that all of that comes together and really have an impact in terms of the people that are in the industry and who can benefit from it. So in summary, I think the opportunity for us is to not really follow any other model of any other country. We should figure out what we need to do, and then I kind of gave an outline of how India can leapfrog by focusing on the strength of our people, which is innovation and R&D. And I think there's enough talent available. Anybody who ever says that we don't have product expertise in India, we don't have capabilities, I don't think it's been harnessed properly. The capabilities do exist. Secondly, we need to have a plan to really capture a big chunk of the value chain very quickly, because that will give the fuel into the system to be able to fund all the other initiatives. Thirdly, I would say the EMS and the other manufacturing system ecosystem should be created in line with what we need for the larger cause in terms of the thing that we are going to be producing at the early stages. And then the last part, which I wanted to make sure I do bring up, and especially in the context of the collaboration aspect, is that there's a unique opportunity which is emerging because of the whole ESDM value chain in the world getting disturbed. A lot of the Western world companies who were, except for a few companies who are financially very healthy in the past, are financially struggling, because the price points which have been set in terms of the price at which many of these products get sold are being determined by the Chinese companies. And if you actually have to invest to continue to be competitive on those, it's becoming a big challenge to manage your P&L, where your profits are not good enough to fund all the R&D. This is really where the long-term core competence and the sweet spots that India has come into play, where India can do a lot of ESDM products for the world and really use many of the Western world companies in a collaboration mode, like what we have done in the IT services, where we develop the products, we do all the R&D, we actually manufacture them in the country. And we can potentially partner with a lot of the Western world companies in basically selling and distributing them around the world, and really take advantage of both the ecosystems so that healthy ecosystem can compete with the Chinese ecosystem, for example, which does everything from top to end by itself. So I really think this is another opportunity from scaling up the industry on a global basis that India has. And these things have been proven in the past. Nothing that I said has not been done in some segment of our economy or sector. And I really don't see why we should not take the learnings from India in different sectors, apply it into ESDM, and really take a kickstart onto this whole process from here on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay.